do Vinhos e Prazeres. Estamos trazendo mais uma novidade, que é uma produtora alemã de vinhos, para falar a respeito de seus vinhos que ficam no Vale do Mosel e que então ele vai começar contando para a gente a história da vinícola. Well, Sebastian, can you say to us about your winery and the story that I know that have about 100 years?
Yes, so my name is Sebastian Selbach. I am currently the 13th generation, so a long time. So our estate dates back well into the 17th century to the year 1600, to be more precise. That was the first time when our ancestor was named. I come from the Mosel Valley in the southwest of Germany. We farm 23 hectares, of which 90% is planted with Riesling, around 5% of Pinot Noir, and around 4.5% of Pinot Blanc, and just a little bit of Gewürztraminer.
And do you make sweet wine too?
Of the Gewürztraminer,
Yes,
yeah,
sweet wine.
only the Gewürztraminer only dry style. But actually, we made one Sekt Brut, Gewürztraminer Brut, for the first time. But usually just a dry Gewürztraminer.
Here in Brazil, the people doesn't know about the Riesling very well. I think it's one of the great grapes that we have in the world and make spectacular wines.
Exactly. So Riesling is very common here in the Mosel. It's planted. It's 60% of the total acreage in the Mosel is planted with Riesling. It has a long tradition here. Actually, back in the late 18th century, before Napoleon, most of the vineyard land was owned by the Catholic Church, and the last Prince Bishop of Trier, by decree, said that only Riesling has to be planted, and that was in 1787. And so that's when Riesling pretty much took over the other grape varieties, because a lot of people don't know that 200 years ago there was also a bigger variety of grape varieties here in the Mosel Valley, also red varieties like Pinot Noir, which is now coming back and also in popularity.
What are the type of wines that you make in your
Yes,
winery?
so yes, so all different types. So with Riesling, we have, so first of all, we have different vineyard sites, different single vineyards. In Zeltingen, we have three main vineyard sites. We have vineyards in neighboring villages of Wehlen, Krach, and Bernkastel. So pretty much on a 8 kilometer stretch along the Mosel. So the Mosel is a very steep valley, steep slopes, and we make different quality levels of Riesling, starting with the Qualitätswein, which is the entry level Riesling, and then comes Kabinett. Kabinett is like an early harvest, Spätlese, late harvest, Auslese. It's more like a selection of grapes that have some botrytis. Then we have some Beerenauslese and Trockenbeerenauslese. So you have to imagine it's like a pyramid. On the top you have the Trockenbeerenauslese, which is 100% botryticized grapes only, so like raisins. And those quality levels are measured by the must weight, so the amount of ripeness sugar at harvest time. A lot of people confuse that with the level of sweetness within the wine. So when you want to make sure that you have a dry wine, for instance, look at on the label when it says trocken. Trocken is the German word for dry. And in order to be able to put trocken on the label, the wine has to be maximum 9 grams of residual sugar per liter. And also the alcohol level indicates roughly what level of sweetness you are having in the wine. For instance, normally, of course, there are some exceptions. Wine with above 12% is usually a dry wine, and between 10.5 and 12, it would be like the halbtrocken or the medium dry style. And below 10% of alcohol, it's mostly the off-dry, the more fruitier styles with Riesling. So that's actually a good indication for like a private consumer to look at the alcohol level. That is also a good thing to do. So as you can see, different quality levels in terms of the pyramid, but then, like I said, a different factor is the level of sweetness, which is another dimension which you don't find quite often with other grape varieties. And especially like the mid segment, like Kabinett, Spätlese, those wines when you so the reason why you have more residual sugar or sweetness is because we stop the fermentation by cooling down the tank or the barrel. So we use two vats where we ferment the juice in. One is stainless steel, and the other one is used what we call Fuder barrel. It's German oak. It's used. So we still have, yes, it's round in 1000 liters in shape. And we still have some barrels that are still in use from my great grandfather. He used to be a barrel maker, cooper. So that barrel is at least from the 1920s, 1930s. So we still use it. So Riesling is actually a grape variety that doesn't need new oak. It's a very aromatic variety. It's very complex and it doesn't need that support. Like for instance, with other varieties like with Chardonnay or Pinot Blanc, you can have some new oak as well. With Riesling, you don't want to have that. And the good thing is also about Riesling, it's very food friendly. So you can do a whole pairing menu just with Riesling, because you have the different levels of ripeness, different levels of sweetness. For instance, as an entry level, when you have some seafood or some white meats like chicken, something that is more like a dry Riesling goes quite well. Then for something like that has a little bit more stronger flavors like duck or lamb or venison, that goes well with a Spätlese, which is like has some age, like a medium dry Spätlese, to balance like the little bit stronger flavors of the meat, for instance. Or then cheese goes well really good with Kabinett or with a sweeter Spätlese or even Auslese. And then for dessert, you can have something like a Beerenauslese. So you can do different dishes with different styles of Riesling. And also, what is quite interesting is what a lot of people don't know is that Riesling can age very well. For instance, even entry-level Kabinett, you can easily drink in 20, 25 years. It actually gains complexity over time.
It changes with the time.
Yes. So over time, the sweetness and the acidity will integrate a little bit more. So the wine over the times will taste drier on your palate, and the perceived acidity will be also a little bit less pronounced. So this is something that's quite interesting about Riesling as a variety.
Which is your main market?
Our main market is the US. So actually we export around 75% to export. And in the export market, our biggest market is the US. After the US, so Canada plays a big role. Then in Europe would be Norway, for instance. But we have in Europe, we have several markets. Also Italy, Spain, UK, Poland, the Baltics, Russia, to name a few. Then Asia is quite important. As a traditional market, Japan. We export to South Korea, Thailand, Philippines, China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Indonesia, Australia also. So a lot of countries. In South America, Brazil is the only country so far. So it's a little bit more exotic market for us. But we are really spread all over the globe with our wines.
And German is 25%. Stays in German.
It's around 25% is Germany. That we sell to restaurants, so private clients. So the thing is about when you look at Germany, you have different wine regions, not only the Mosel, but the Mosel. If you are abroad in different countries, and when people think of German wine, Mosel comes first, and Riesling comes first as a variety. So the Mosel has always been very export oriented compared to other wine regions in Germany. So the soil is, or the terroir, we have the blue slate or blue schist, which was formed over 370 million years ago during the Devonian age. Back then, Central Europe was below sea level. And over the millions of years, sediments got compressed under high pressure into what we find as the slate nowadays. So that soil, the slate soil, is quite poor with a low pH level and higher acidity levels. So you have Riesling to begin with, naturally a grape variety with higher levels of acidity compared to other varieties, plus the soil type, which is also has a low pH level and higher levels of acidity. So that also what makes the Mosel and Mosel Riesling so unique. It's always when people ask me describe what is the flavor of Mosel or Mosel Riesling, but it's always that like Flintstone character, a little bit sometimes smokiness, a lot like herbal notes. That's very typical for the area. And what also is what you find quite often, and for Selbach Oster, we do that with over 90% of our wines. We do a spontaneous fermentation, so with natural yeast. So we don't inoculate with cultured yeast. So you get also that character from the natural spontaneous fermentation.
Do you have irrigation?
We don't. So, well, actually in 2018, we started to use some drip irrigation for some young vines, some young fields, because 2018 was a really dry and hot summer. We irrigated in some parcels to support the growth, but beside that, it's not common to use irrigation. So we have over the year, I would say between 700 or 650 and 900 millimeters of annual rainfall each year. So it really depends on the year. But with the old wines, we don't irrigate. And actually, that's another point. Good to mention that is we still have some vines that have the original rootstock. So no grafted vines, which are in some parts, especially the Sonnenuhr, which is the most famous vineyard in Zeltingen, planted. We have one parcel planted 100 years ago, or over 100 years ago, and we still have some vines from that time. So really low yield, high quality, a lot of aromatics.
And do you work only with your grapes? You don't buy from outside?
Exactly, yes. So for Selbach Oster, we only use our own grapes, own vineyards. And so we have a team in the vineyards. And actually, we are looking forward to another early vintage of 25 this year. So we will I was looking at the calendar. Actually, we took the first grape samples out of the vineyards yesterday. and we will probably start with the harvest in the second week of September. Yeah, so first with Pinot Noir, or what we call Spätburgunder in German, and Gewürztraminer, and then probably the Pinot Blanc, or what we call Weißburgunder, in the second, third week of September, and then we will already start with Riesling for the entry level categories, quality levels.
What's the difference of terroir of Rhine and Mosel?
Of Rheingau and Mosel,
Yeah.
so Rheingau has is the warmer area than the Mosel. Mosel is a little bit cooler. And Rheingau has a little bit more variety when it comes to soil types. Well, actually, when you look at the Mosel, it's not completely correct. So you have one part of the Mosel which is to the southwest, close to Luxembourg, and there they have a completely different soil, which is not slate like we have in our area in the central Mosel, but they have type of limestone soil. And in that area, they don't grow much Riesling, a lot of Pinot varieties like Pinot Blanc, Pinot Gris, or Pinot Noir. But that's just that area. Mostly in the Mosel, we have the blue slate soil, whereas in Rheingau, we have more variation of soil types. That is, I think, bigger difference. But both regions have Riesling, which is very important. So the style is different, certainly. So the Rheingau is warmer than the Mosel, maybe a little bit lower in the acidity. But if you are a little bit experienced, you will taste the difference. There's certainly a difference.
How is the curvature, the slope?
The slope,
Yeah.
yes. So the slope is we have the steeper slopes. So the steepest, actually, we have the steepest vineyard in Europe in the Mosel Valley. There is one town called Brem, and the vineyard is called Calmont. And the Calmont is 60 degrees. So that's very steep, 60 degrees of inclination. So you have to imagine it's like some terraces, and there is actually a hiking trail, and there are some areas where you have to use a metal rope to attach to it.
Cable.
So it can be very steep, yes, but it's really nice. So when I was in Brazil a couple of weeks ago, we actually had some visitors from Brazil who already went to the Mosel, and they said, "Oh, it's such a nice place, such a nice countryside valley, a lot of nature, a lot of good wines, and it's really a nice place to visit here in Germany." Also, when you want to do some activities, you can use, there are a lot of boats along the Mosel River. You can do hiking, bicycling, everything. It's all possible.
What's the orientation of the sun you have?
That's also a good thing, because the difference between Rheingau and Mosel. So Rheingau, it's pretty much mostly south facing. So the Rheingau lies is north of the Rhine River. So where the Rhine River is making like a bend, and you have north of the river the Rheingau. Mosel is different. If you look on the map, Mosel, the river is like a snake, and so you have the change in sun exposure. Just, I mean, couple of 100 meters or kilometer, again a change, because it's very like curvy. But the best vineyard sites are situated south facing, and then of course you have southwest facing, west facing, southeast facing vineyards, and it really makes a big difference depending on the warmest sides of course facing south, and then southwest, southeast, and the west and east facing parts of the vineyards are the coolest ones that we would use to make Kabinett, for instance, where you don't need too much ripeness.
But you make a natural production. You don't use any chemical in
No, exactly. So we don't do any fining. What we do is so we pick everything by hand, and then we will, before pressing, we will crush the grapes. We have like a grape mill, 2 cylinders, and we pre-crush the grapes, and then the crushed grapes we will put into a membrane press up to 1.8 bar of pressure for 1.5 to 2 hours. And then the must, which is running off, let it flow into sediment tanks, which stand outside. And so we will do a cold settling overnight. So the sediments will settle down. And the next morning we rack off the clear must into the cellar, either into stainless steel or into the foeder, into the oak barrel. And pretty much after a couple of days, ideally the juice starts fermenting on its own. So really we don't use any fining, any bentonite whatsoever. So it's really a hands-off approach. So most of the work is done in the vineyards. That's very crucial.
You don't make any clarification.
After the fermentation, we do a filtration. That is what we do. You have to do that, especially with the off-dry wines, because when you have residual sugar left in the wine, if you wouldn't filter at all, there would be always the risk to have a second fermentation in the bottle. And that is something you don't want to have, so otherwise you will have some bubbles in the bottle. So that, yes, so filtration we will do before bottling, but no fining.
Did you eat any Brazilian food?
Did I eat? Yes, a lot of meat, a lot of meat, a lot of steak. So I had a lot of food while I was there. Unfortunately, it was only one week, so I have to come back. And next time with a little bit more spare time, a little bit more free time. And yes, it was really a wonderful time, really friendly people, nice atmosphere. And yes, I hope that in the future that there will be a free trade agreement between the European Union and Mercosur, that hopefully it will be less expensive for people in Brazil to drink wine from Europe. That would be really good because of the price difference.
Yeah, I say thank you for saying to our people about your wines because they don't know. Once Brazil imported a very low level of German wine, and this create some difficulty for the people who make good German wine. But now I think it's increasing the consumption, and they know what is good.
And the good thing is, when I was in Brazil a couple of weeks ago, people were surprised by the low alcohol levels, and they said, "Wow, that's not so much." And it's really enjoyed the wines, all sides from dry to the sweeter styles. And I hope that my visit made an impression.
Yeah.
And that people will try more wines also from the Mosel, from Germany, because it's something different, different style than that you find, for instance, in Italy, France, or Spain, or Portugal.
And Mistral is the importer of your wine.
So we have been working with them for around 20 years.
Thank you for your time, and
Thank
I
you,
hope
Alberto.
you come back here and taste other food.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I look forward to that. All right.